Hello everyone, thank you so much for joining me today for another video. So last week I published a video and it was inspired by Djamel Bellamari. At the end of the video, I showed this round, got a lot of feedback, not only on this round, but on the other one that I did. And I had a lot of people say that this technique is a lot easier on a wood round or laminate or something like that. Well, I don't have but one additional wood round. I used one for this painting. And I wanted to see, okay, if I did a canvas, what are some of the pros and cons that I see? And I'm going to do a voiceover for this video and kind of explain to you different things that I'm observing as I go through the process. So let's get down to the canvas and get started. All right, to get started, the first thing that I did was spray down my canvas with some water and just use this paintbrush to make sure that my canvas was really wet. Now, this is nothing new. I did this in the previous video, but I also had a couple of paints, as you can see, the two red colors there, and they're just paint and water. Now, I got asked about some ratios, and the ratio is really just extremely thin paint. If you use too much water, it's not going to work. And if you use too little water, it's not going to work. But I just use a drop of paint, nothing more, and then about equal parts of water. I did use better quality paints just so that I could make sure to maintain the color, but they are thinned down about halfway. So I decided to go ahead and use another paintbrush and remove some of the paint. This is the same technique that I used in my previous painting. I don't know if Djamel uses this quite this technique, but it's something that I tried and it worked out well. And from what I can see, when I remove the paint, I do get the effect, but I was having trouble actually removing the paint from the canvas like I had previously done. So I decide to go over it again and try it without removing the paint with a paintbrush. I'm just going over the same area and then I'm going to add a little bit of a darker red so that I can get some dimension in the color. And so this is that darker red that I'm going over it. So I just want to give it some different depth and dimension in the color. So as you can see, I'm not lifting up, but I'm still getting the same effect. So as I continue to go, I'm just layering one over the other to give it some depth and dimension. Looks 3D. I'm having ropes or ribbons or whatever you want to call them overlap each other. And it just gives a really neat effect. Now my paints are still really thin and my canvas is wet. See the different dimension I'm getting by going over. So it's not really lifting the paint off. Yes, it is taking some paint off, but it's more manipulation of the paint. And it still gives a really cool effect. And especially if you used multiple colors, which I'm getting to use, and the colors will blend as you start putting your finger through them. It's a really neat effect as well. So I'm adding my second color and my canvas is still really wet. If your canvas is not wet, you need to spray it down because you really have to have the canvas wet. You can see here as I go through the orange and the red, how the colors start to blend together. And it's really pretty. So right here, going through it, you'll see the red and the orange merge. Gives a totally different color and it really brings them together. So you can see right here, as I went over at the very top, it lifted almost all the paint off. So I realized that two things had happened. One, I'd gone over that area too many times. If you go over an area too many times, the canvas starts lifting off, not just the. So, yes, it's good to have it real wet, but you do have to work kind of quickly because it's not working right now. Things are dry. So, I'm going back over it with some wet paint that's diluted with water and trying to fix it. So, I just go over it again, and I'm trying to keep in mind I can only go over the canvas so many times before the canvas starts to ball. And I'm realizing that's what's happening here. So you do have to work relatively quickly, but it is a very forgiving technique. Another thing that I noticed is the red was almost dry. So when I went back over it, it gave some really cool, deeper, richer colors because it's adding color on color. So I decided to add a few more and just keep working on composition and dimension and layering just to see what effects I can. So I wanted to step in here for just a second. What I'm doing now is just going over some areas that wasn't real happy with. Now the canvas at this point is dry, and so I'm having to make sure that my paint that I apply to the canvas is really wet. But I'm just giving it some dimension, making sure that the colors blend well, adding more color, and so on. So as I start to apply the paint and then do the technique, I realized that my canvas is too dry. So I squirted it down with a squirt bottle and went ahead and did the technique, and it worked a lot better. I cannot emphasize enough how wet your canvas has to be for this technique. I just continue on adding more colors, blending, doing the technique, trying to make sure that the ribbons overlap each other, give it some dimension. dried results. Now I want to go over a couple of observations that I had while I was doing this painting. If you recall, I didn't put anything on this canvas. I went straight from paint to canvas. I didn't put any additional gesso. It's a pre-gessoed canvas. And I didn't put a base coat down. So one thing I observed is that it did not lift the paint off the canvas. Now it manipulated the paint and gave it a really cool effect. And of course some of it came off, but not like it did on a harder surface. I love the way the colors bleed, look at that. The other thing I observed is that you have to work quickly because you do not want your canvas to dry out. And if it does, you can add some more water, but you still have to be cautious in how much water you add. I love that blue one down there. So cool. Because the canvas will start to ball on you. So you have to work a little quickly. But it's very forgiving, still gives you the 3D effect, super cool. I really like this technique and I'm gonna continue to explore with it. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video. Please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and hit that like button. And as always, you have a great day. Until next time, bye.